Maya Rodriguez had always believed her parents loved her unconditionally. Even after her messy divorce 2 years ago left her a single mother of 3-year-old twins, Robert and Patricia Whitmore had seemed like pillars of support. They'd helped with the down payment on her modest duplex, sent birthday gifts for Emma and Ethan, and never missed an opportunity to show off photos of their grandchildren at their country club gatherings. "You're doing such a wonderful job, sweetheart," her mother would coo during their weekly Sunday dinners at the family estate. "Those babies are lucky to have such a devoted mother." Her father, a successful real estate developer, would nod approvingly and slip Maya an envelope with a few $100s. "Just a little something to help with expenses," he'd say, patting her shoulder with what felt like genuine affection. Maya had grown comfortable in this safety net, believing that despite her struggles as a 28-year-old single mother working as a part-time graphic designer, she wasn't truly alone. The Whitmores had money, influence, and most importantly, they had her back. Or so she thought. The pain started on a Tuesday morning as Maya was getting the twins ready for daycare. A sharp, stabbing sensation in her right side that made her double over, gasping. Emma looked up with wide brown eyes, her small hand reaching for Maya's face. "Mommy hurt?" the little girl asked, her voice filled with the kind of pure concern that only children possess. "Mommy's okay, baby," Maya managed, though sweat beaded on her forehead. She'd been having mild discomfort for weeks, but this was different. This was urgent, demanding attention she couldn't afford to give. By Thursday, the pain was unbearable. Dr. Chen's diagnosis came swift and unforgiving: acute gallbladder inflammation, requiring immediate surgical removal. "We need to schedule this for tomorrow," Dr. Chen explained, his voice gentle but firm. "Waiting any longer could lead to complications. The surgery is routine, but you'll need someone to care for you afterward. Do you have family support?" Maya nodded automatically, thinking of her parents' spacious home with its guest bedrooms and full-time housekeeper. Of course they'd help. They always did. That evening, after tucking Emma and Ethan into their matching toddler beds, Maya dialed her parents' number with trembling fingers. The pain medication made everything feel distant and surreal, but she forced herself to focus. "Darling," Patricia's voice was bright and cheerful. "How lovely to hear from you. We're just getting ready for tomorrow night's anniversary concert. 40 years of marriage, can you believe it? The symphony is performing Rachmaninoff. You know how your father adores the classics." Maya's stomach dropped. She'd completely forgotten about their anniversary celebration. For months her parents had been planning this elaborate evening. Dinner at the city's most exclusive restaurant followed by front-row seats at the Symphony Hall. Patricia had even bought a new gown, spending more on one dress than Maya made in 3 months. "Mom, I hate to ask this, but I need help." Maya's voice cracked as another wave of pain hit. "I have to have emergency gallbladder surgery tomorrow. Could you possibly watch Emma and Ethan? I know it's your anniversary, but I'm desperate. I've called everyone I can think of, and tomorrow—" Patricia's tone shifted, the warmth evaporating instantly. "Maya, sweetheart, you know we can't possibly cancel our plans. We've been looking forward to this for months. The tickets alone cost $800. Mom, please. I'm in so much pain I can barely function. The doctor says if I wait any longer, it could become life-threatening. I just need someone to watch them for one night." "What about that friend of yours, Jessica? She's out of town with her family." "Mom, I've tried everyone. My neighbor is working a double shift, the daycare doesn't do overnight care, and I can't afford a professional babysitter on such short notice. Please, I'm begging you." The silence on the other end stretched painfully long. Maya could hear her father's voice in the background, asking what was wrong. When Patricia finally spoke, her words cut deeper than any scalpel could. "Maya, your father and I have sacrificed enough for your poor choices. We supported you through that disaster of a marriage, helped you get back on your feet, and we've been more than generous with our time and money. We are not missing our special night because you can't handle your responsibilities like an adult." The words hit Maya like a physical blow. "My responsibilities? Mom, this is a medical emergency. I'm not asking you to raise my children, I'm asking you to help me for one night, so I can have surgery. You're 28 years old, Maya. You chose to have children. You chose to divorce their father, and now you need to figure out how to manage without constantly running to us every time there's a problem. Frankly, this whole situation has become quite the burden." The word echoed in Maya's mind as tears streamed down her face. Through the baby monitor she could hear Ethan stirring in his crib, probably sensing her distress even in sleep. "Please," Maya whispered, her voice breaking entirely. "I'm your daughter, they're your grandchildren. I'm scared and I'm in pain, and I just need help. We'll call you after the concert tomorrow night to see how you're doing," Patricia said briskly. "I'm sure you'll figure something out. You always do. Now I really must go, we have dinner reservations at 7. The line went dead. Maya stared at her phone in disbelief, the silence of her empty house suddenly deafening. The pain in her side pulsed with each heartbeat, but it was nothing compared to the hollow ache spreading through her chest. She had never felt so utterly alone. With shaking hands she called Dr. Chen's emergency line and postponed the surgery. She would have to find another way somehow. As she lay in bed that night, listening to her children's peaceful breathing through the monitor, Maya realized that everything she'd believed about her family, about unconditional love and support, had been an illusion. Her parents had chosen a concert over her life. They had called her a burden. And tomorrow night, while she writhed in pain and scrambled to care for her children, they would be sipping champagne and applauding Rachmaninoff, having the time of their lives. Maya spent the weekend in agony, both physical and emotional. She'd managed to find a last-minute babysitter, a 17-year-old neighbor who charged triple her usual rate for the emergency overnight care, and finally had her surgery on Monday. The procedure went smoothly, but the recovery was brutal, made worse by having to care for 2 energetic toddlers while dealing with post-operative pain. It was Wednesday evening, 3 days after her parents' precious anniversary concert, when Maya made the mistake of checking social media. She'd been avoiding her phone, partly from the medication-induced haze, and partly from the emotional exhaustion of processing her parents' abandonment. But Emma had finally fallen asleep, after a particularly difficult bedtime routine, and Ethan was quietly playing with his blocks, so Maya allowed herself a few minutes of mindless scrolling. The first photo hit her like a sledgehammer to the chest. There was her mother, radiant in a floor-length emerald gown that probably cost more than Maya's monthly rent, her arm linked through her father's, as they posed in front of the symphony hall. Patricia's smile was dazzling, her professionally styled hair perfect, diamond earrings catching the camera flash. Robert looked distinguished in his tailored tuxedo, his chest puffed with pride. The caption read, "Perfect anniversary celebration, 40 years of love and still going strong. Nothing could ruin this magical night." Maya's hands trembled as she scrolled through the carousel of images. Her parents at dinner, clinking champagne glasses, Patricia posing with her perfectly plated lobster, Robert shaking hands with the conductor backstage. A selfie during intermission, both of them glowing with happiness. Nothing could ruin this magical night. Maya stared at those words until they blurred through her tears. While she had been writhing in pain, terrified and alone, desperately trying to arrange care for her children, her parents had been living it up, without a care in the world. They hadn't just attended their concert, they'd had the time of their lives. She scrolled further, her heart sinking with each new post. Photos from the after-party at the country club, her parents surrounded by friends, everyone laughing and toasting. The comments were effusive. "What a beautiful couple. Goals. You two are an inspiration." If only these people knew the truth, Maya thought bitterly. If only they knew that this inspiring couple had abandoned their daughter in her hour of need, calling her a burden for daring to ask for help during a medical emergency. Maya's phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "Hope you're feeling better, sweetheart. The concert was absolutely divine. Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto, No. 2, brought tears to my eyes. We'll call you this weekend." The casual tone, the complete absence of any acknowledgement of what had happened, made Maya's stomach turn. It was as if their cruel conversation had never occurred, as if Maya's pain and desperation meant nothing, as if her children, their own grandchildren, were merely an inconvenience to be dismissed. That night, as Maya lay in bed unable to sleep despite the pain medication, memories began flooding back with devastating clarity. All those times her parents had seemed so supportive. Had there always been conditions attached? All those Sunday dinners where they'd praised her parenting, had they been performances for their own benefit? She remembered her father's comment last Christmas, "It's so nice to have a daughter who needs us, makes us feel useful in our golden years." At the time she'd thought it was sweet, Now she realized it was about their need to feel superior, to maintain control. She remembered her mother's frequent remarks about Maya's situation, always said with a slight emphasis that made it clear. Patricia viewed single motherhood as a shameful failure, rather than a brave choice. "Given your situation, dear, I think you're doing admirably," she'd say, the backhanded compliment landing like a gentle slap. Maya pulled up the photos again, studying her parents' faces. They looked so happy, so carefree, so completely unburdened by any thought of their daughter's suffering. The contrast between their joy and her pain was obscene. "Why can't mommy get better fast?" Emma had asked that morning, her small hand patting Maya's bandaged incision with heartbreaking gentleness. "Sometimes grown-ups need time to heal, baby," Maya had whispered, pulling her daughter close. "But why didn't Grandma and Grandpa help? They helped when I had the flu." The innocent question had shattered something inside Maya. Even her 3-year-old understood that family was supposed to show up for each other. Even Emma knew that love meant sacrifice. Maya deleted the photos from her phone, but she couldn't delete them from her memory. She couldn't unsee her parents' blissful faces, or unknow the truth about their character. They had shown her exactly who they were when she needed them most: selfish, conditional, and cruel. The realization settled over her like a heavy blanket. She had been living a lie her entire adult life. Her parents' love had always come with strings attached, conditions and expectations, but she'd been too naive to recognize. The moment she'd needed them to love her without getting anything in return, they'd revealed their true nature. Maya closed her eyes and made a decision that would change everything. She was done being their grateful, dependent daughter, done accepting their conditional love and financial scrap, done pretending that family meant anything to people who could call their own child a burden. If her parents wanted to live in a world where image mattered more than substance, where maintaining appearances was more important than actual love, then Maya would give them exactly what they deserved. She would show them what a real burden looked like. 2 weeks into her recovery, Maya received an elegant cream-colored invitation in the mail. The Whitmore Foundation's annual charity gala, featuring a silent auction to benefit children's hospitals. The irony wasn't lost on her parents, who had refused to help their own daughter during a medical crisis, hosting a fundraiser for sick children. Maya studied the invitation with growing interest. This wasn't just any social event. The Whitmore Foundation Gala was the crown jewel of her parents' social calendar, the annual showcase of their philanthropy and community standing. Every influential person in the city would be there: business leaders, politicians, fellow country club members, and the social elite who formed the backbone of her parents' carefully constructed world. She remembered helping her mother plan previous galas, watching Patricia obsess over every detail. The guest list was curated like a museum collection, each name representing social capital and networking opportunities. The event wasn't really about charity, it was about image, status, and the Whitmore family's reputation as pillars of the community. "Maya, darling, you simply must come this year," Patricia had said during their last phone call, her voice bright with artificial warmth. "Bring the twin. Everyone would love to see how much they've grown. And you look like you've lost weight. The stress has been good for your figure." Even in extending the invitation, her mother had managed to be casually cruel. Maya had politely declined, citing her recovery, but now she realized she'd been handed the perfect opportunity. That evening, after putting Emma and Ethan to bed, Maya opened her laptop and began researching. She pulled up years of social media posts, charity event coverage, and local newspaper articles featuring her parents. The pattern was unmistakable. Robert and Patricia Whitmore had built their entire social identity around being the perfect family, generous philanthropists, and pillars of traditional values. "Family comes first," her father had been quoted saying in last year's charity gala coverage. "Patricia and I have always believed that strong families are the foundation of a strong community. That's why we're so passionate about supporting children's causes." Maya screenshot the article, adding it to a growing folder on her desktop labeled Research. She began digging deeper, using her insider knowledge of her parents' lives to uncover information they'd never want public. She remembered her father's recent struggles with his business, how he'd quietly borrowed against the family home to cover some bad real estate investment. He'd sworn Maya to secrecy, claiming it was just a temporary cash flow issue. "Your mother doesn't need to worry about such things," he'd said. "What she doesn't know won't hurt her." She recalled her mother's affair from 5 years ago, a brief but passionate relationship with her tennis instructor that Patricia had confessed during a wine-fueled conversation. "It was just a moment of weakness," she'd sobbed. "Your father can never know. It would destroy him, and more importantly, it would destroy our reputation." Maya also had access to something even more damaging: the text messages and voicemails from the night she'd begged for help. She'd saved them all, initially planning to delete them once the pain faded. Now they seemed like weapons waiting to be deployed, but the nuclear option was the recording. In her desperation that night, Maya had called her parents one final time, hoping to change their minds. Unbeknownst to them, her phone had automatically started recording the conversation. She had Patricia's voice, clear as day, saying those devastating words: "We've sacrificed enough for your poor choices. This whole situation has become quite the burden." Maya played the recording back, listening to her own tearful pleading contrasted with her mother's cold dismissal. The cruelty was even worse when heard again: the way Patricia's voice turned sharp and impatient, the way her father could be heard in the background saying, "Tell her we're not babysitting tonight, we have plans." She began crafting her strategy. The gala would be the perfect venue, a room full of people who admired her parents' commitment to family values and charitable giving. Maya would have a captive audience of everyone who mattered in their social circle. She researched the event format from previous years. There was always a moment when her parents took the stage to give their annual speech about the importance of community and family support. They would present the evening's fundraising total and thank their generous friends for their contribution. It was their moment of triumph, when they basked in applause and admiration. That's when Maya would make her move. She began preparing her materials: screenshots of the social media posts from their anniversary night, copies of the text messages, and most importantly, the audio record. She would need everything organized and ready, with backups stored in multiple locations. Maya also realized she'd need to look the part. If she was going to infiltrate high society for one night, she'd need to blend in. She found a black cocktail dress at a consignment shop, elegant but understated, appropriate for someone playing the role of devoted daughter. She practiced her speech in the mirror, working on keeping her voice steady and her demeanor calm. The plan was simple but devastating. She would attend the gala as expected, playing the perfect daughter role for most of the evening. She'd mingle with the guests, let them coo over photos of the twins, and allow her parents to bask in the glow of their wonderful family. Then, when they took the stage for their speech, Maya would ask to say a few words. "I'd like to share what family really means to the Whitmores," she would begin, her voice warm and loving. The audience would expect a touching tribute. Instead, they would get the truth. Maya knew her parents well enough to predict their response. They would try to minimize the damage, claim she was having some kind of breakdown, attempt to paint her as unstable or vindictive, but the evidence would speak for itself. The recording of their voices, the documented timeline of events, the contrast between their public image and private behavior, it would all be undeniable. The beauty of the plan was its simplicity. Maya wouldn't need to lie or exaggerate. She would simply tell the truth to people who had built their entire social identity on a carefully constructed facade. As she finalized her preparations, Maya felt something she hadn't experienced in weeks: a sense of power and control. For too long she'd been the victim in this story, the abandoned daughter begging for scraps of affection. Now she would be the author of her own narrative. Her parents wanted to treat her like a burden. She would show them what carrying a real burden felt like: the burden of exposed hypocrisy, shattered reputation, and public humiliation. The Whitmore Foundation Gala was 3 weeks away. Maya marked the date on her calendar with a red pen, circling it like a target. Everything was ready. All that remained was the execution. The Riverside Country Club's grand ballroom sparkled with crystal chandeliers and white orchid centerpieces, its elegant atmosphere humming with the conversations of the city's elite. Maya stood at the entrance, her black cocktail dress perfectly appropriate, her smile practiced and serene. She looked every inch the devoted daughter returning to her parents' world. "Maya, sweetheart." Patricia rushed over in a flowing navy gown, her face lighting up with what appeared to be genuine joy. "You look absolutely radiant. I'm so glad you changed your mind about coming." Her father appeared moments later, distinguished in his black tuxedo, beaming as he pulled Maya into a warm embrace. "There's our girl. Everyone's been asking about you and the grandchildren. Where are those little angels tonight?" "With a very reliable babysitter," Maya replied smoothly, accepting air kisses from her mother. "I thought it would be nice to have an adult evening for once." For the first hour, Maya played her role perfectly. She mingled with familiar faces from her childhood, accepting condolences about her recent surgery and sympathy about the challenges of single motherhood. She smiled graciously when Miss Henderson from the garden club gushed about what wonderful, supportive parents she had, and nodded politely when Judge Morrison praised her father's business ethics. The Whitmores are such an inspiration, Dr. Phillips, the hospital board chairman, told a small gathering around the bar. In this age of broken families, it's refreshing to see people who truly understand that blood is thicker than water. Family first, always. Maya sipped her wine and smiled, storing every comment in her memory like ammunition. As the evening progressed, she watched her parents work the room with practiced efficiency. Patricia charmed potential donors with stories about the children's hospital wing they were funding, while Robert discussed expansion plans with potential investors. They were in their element, basking in admiration and social approval. At 9 o'clock, the formal program began. Maya positioned herself strategically near the front of the room as her parents took the stage, radiant under the spotlights. The crowd quieted respectfully. "Thank you all for being here tonight," Patricia began, her voice warm and melodious. 41 years ago, Robert and I made a commitment, not just to each other, but to our community. We believed then, as we believe now, that strong families create strong community. Applause rippled through the room. Maya's grip tightened on her wine glass. Robert stepped forward, his voice carrying easily through the sound system. "Tonight, thanks to your incredible generosity, we've raised over $200,000 for the Children's Hospital. But more than that, we've demonstrated what's possible when people who share the same values come together." More applause. Maya noticed several people glancing at her with warm smiles, clearly moved by this display of family unity. "Our greatest pride," Patricia continued, "has always been our family. Our daughter Maya has shown such strength and resilience, raising our beautiful grandchildren with the values we tried to instill in her. She's here with us tonight, and I think she'd like to say a few words about what family means to the Whitmores." This wasn't part of the original program, but Maya had been hoping for exactly this opportunity. Patricia was unwittingly handing her the perfect set. Maya stood and made her way to the stage, her heart pounding, but her expression serene. "Thank you, Mom," Maya said, accepting the microphone. She looked out at the sea of expectant faces, business leaders, society matrons, charity board members, all waiting to hear a touching tribute to the wonderful Whitmore family. 3 weeks ago, Maya began, her voice clear and steady, "I learned what family really means to my parents." She paused, letting the anticipation build. Behind her she could sense Robert and Patricia exchanging glances, probably wondering where this was going. "I was facing emergency gallbladder surgery. As a single mother with no family support system other than my parents, I called them in desperation, begging for help with my 3-year-old twins. Do you know what they told me?" The room was completely silent now. Maya could see confusion starting to creep across some faces in the audience. "They told me they had sacrificed enough for my poor choices. They told me I needed to handle my responsibilities like an adult, and when I broke down crying begging them to reconsider because I was scared and in pain, my mother called me a burden." Gasps echoed through the ballroom. Maya heard her father hiss, "Maya, what are you doing?" behind her, but she continued. "But here's the beautiful part. They didn't miss their anniversary concert. While I was postponing surgery, writhing in agony, and scrambling to find emergency childcare I couldn't afford, they were having the time of their lives." Maya pulled out her phone, the screenshots already queued up. In fact, Mom posted on social media that night. Let me read the caption: "Perfect anniversary celebration. Nothing could ruin this magical night." The silence in the room was deafening. Maya could see shock and horror spreading across faces in the crowd. "Now you might think I'm being vindictive or emotional, so let me play you the actual recording of our conversation that night." "Maya, stop this right now," Patricia hissed, stepping toward her, but Maya had already pressed play. Her mother's voice filled the ballroom, clear and unmistakable. "Maya, your father and I have sacrificed enough for your poor choices. We are not missing our special night because you can't handle your responsibilities like an adult. Frankly, this whole situation has become quite the burden." The recording continued with Maya's tearful begging and her parents' cold refusal. Robert's voice could be heard in the background. "Tell her we're not babysitting tonight. We have plans." The room erupted. Shocked murmurs turned into outraged whispers. Several people were pulling out their phones, clearly recording or taking photos. Maya saw Mrs. Henderson covering her mouth in horror, while Judge Morrison was shaking his head in disgust. "Maya, you're having some kind of breakdown," Patricia said desperately, trying to salvage the situation. "Everyone, my daughter has been under tremendous stress." "I'm not finished," Maya said calmly, reclaiming the microphone. Since we're talking about family values and community support, let me share a few more things about the Whitmores that you might find interesting. She pulled out the printed articles and screenshots she'd prepared. Dad, would you like to tell everyone about the second mortgage you took out on the family home to cover your bad investments? Or should I mention Mom's affair with her tennis instructor 5 years ago? That's enough. Robert roared, lunging for the microphone, but Maya stepped away smoothly. These are the people you've been admiring all these years. Maya continued, addressing the stunned audience. These are your pillars of family values. They'll donate hundreds of thousands to help other people's children, while abandoning their own daughter and grandchildren in a medical emergency. The crowd was in chaos now. People were standing, talking in shocked whispers, some heading for the exit. Maya could see phones everywhere. This was going to be all over social media within minutes. Patricia was crying now, her carefully applied makeup running down her cheeks. Please, she begged the crowd, don't listen to her. She's upset about the surgery, she's not thinking clearly, but it was too late. The damage was catastrophic and spreading by the minute. Maya could see the horror and disgust in every face turned toward the stage. These people, who had built their social lives around the appearance of propriety and family values, had just witnessed the complete destruction of everything the Whitmores claimed to represent. Maya handed the microphone back to her stunned father and walked off the stage, her head held high. Behind her she could hear Patricia's desperate attempts to explain, Robert's angry denials, and the growing roar of outraged conversation. As she reached the ballroom doors, Maya turned back for one last look. Her parents stood alone on the stage, isolated in the spotlight, their perfect world crumbling around them in real time. The revenge was complete, but Maya realized this was only the beginning. The real consequences were just starting to unfold. Maya had barely made it home and paid the babysitter when her phone started ringing. It was 11:47 p.m. and her parents' names flashed on the screen in rapid succession. First Robert, then Patricia, then Robert again. She let them all go to voicemail. By morning, the storm had reached hurricane proportions. Videos of Maya's speech were trending on local social media, shared and reshared with captions like "Charity Fraud Exposed" and "Family Values Hypocrisy." The local news had picked up the story, running it as their lead segment, "Prominent Family's Dark Secrets Revealed at Charity Gala." Maya's phone buzzed with a text from her neighbor. "Holy shit, Maya, you're all over Facebook. Are you okay?" She wasn't sure how to answer that question. Physically, she felt oddly calm, almost disconnected from the chaos she'd unleashed. Emotionally, she felt something between vindication and vertigo, like jumping off a cliff and realizing mid-fall that there was no going back. The first concrete consequence came Tuesday morning. Maya's phone rang with an unknown number, and she answered to find Margaret Sinclair, president of the Riverside Country Club, on the line. "Maya dear, I'm calling as a courtesy." Margaret's voice was carefully neutral. "The club's board held an emergency meeting this morning. Your parents' membership has been suspended pending a full review of the allegations made at Saturday's event." Maya felt a stab of something, satisfaction, guilt, as she realized her parents had just lost their primary social hub, the place where they'd spent nearly every weekend for the past 15 years. By Wednesday, the dominoes were falling faster. Robert's business partner, James Mitchell, called Maya directly. "I wanted you to hear this from me," James said, his voice tight with anger. "I'm dissolving my partnership with your father, effective immediately. The financial irregularities you mentioned, combined with this public relations nightmare, I can't have my family's name associated with this kind of scandal." Thursday brought news that Patricia had been asked to step down from the hospital charity board, the same board that was supposed to benefit from Saturday's fundraiser. Friday's newspaper ran a follow-up story, revealing that several major donors were demanding their contributions be returned. But Maya wasn't prepared for what happened next. Her parents launched a counterattack that was swift, brutal, and calculated to cause maximum damage. Robert hired Marcus Webb, the city's most aggressive attorney, and by the following Monday, Maya received a cease and desist letter threatening legal action for defamation, invasion of privacy, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The letter accused Maya of maliciously and deliberately destroying the reputation and livelihood of Robert and Patricia Whitmore through false and misleading statements. It demanded a full public retraction and apology, plus financial compensation for damages to their business and social standing. But the legal threats were just the beginning. Within days, Maya started receiving calls from her few remaining family friends, all delivering variations of the same message. The Whitmores were telling everyone that Maya was having a mental breakdown, that she was an unstable, vindictive daughter who had fabricated the entire story to extort money from them. "Your parents are worried sick about you," Maya's former college roommate called to say. "They think you might be having some kind of postpartum depression episode. They just want to help." The manipulation was masterful and nauseating. Her parents were using Maya's own mental health and recent surgery as weapons against her, painting themselves as concerned parents dealing with an unhinged daughter. Then came the cruelest blow of all. Patricia showed up at Maya's house on a Tuesday morning, tears streaming down her face, carrying a legal document. "You forced us to do this," Patricia sobbed, her appearance dramatically different from the polished society matron of 2 weeks ago. Her hair was unwashed, her clothes wrinkled, her makeup streaked. "We never wanted it to come to this, but you've given us no choice." The document was a petition for emergency custody of Emma and Ethan, citing Maya's erratic and dangerous behavior and her inability to provide a stable home environment. Her parents were claiming that Maya's public breakdown at the gala, combined with her history of poor decision-making, made her an unfit mother. "We're prepared to take this to court," Patricia continued, her voice shaking with what appeared to be genuine anguish. "We'll fight for those children, Maya. We won't let your instability destroy their lives the way it's destroying ours." Maya stared at the document in disbelief. Her parents weren't just trying to salvage their reputation, they were trying to take her children. The ultimate punishment for daring to expose their hypocrisy. "You called me a burden," Maya said quietly, her voice deadly calm. "You refused to help me for one night. And now you want to take my children." "We were wrong that night," Patricia admitted, the tears flowing freely now. "We made a terrible mistake, but look what you've done to us, Maya. Our life is ruined. Robert's business is collapsing, we've lost all our friends, and for what? Because we couldn't babysit one evening. Because you abandoned me when I needed you most," Maya replied, her voice rising. "Because you called your own daughter a burden and chose a concert over my health and your grandchildren's welfare. So you destroyed our entire life in retaliation," Patricia screamed, her careful composure finally cracking completely. "You humiliated us in front of everyone we know. You revealed private family matters to strangers. You've made us social pariahs." "I told the truth." "The truth," Patricia laughed bitterly. "The truth is that we've supported you financially for years. We've helped you with everything from your divorce to your mortgage. One time, we weren't available when you needed us, and you decided to ruin us." "You didn't say you weren't available," Maya said, her voice cold as ice. "You said I was a burden. You said you'd sacrificed enough for my poor choices. You made it clear that I meant nothing to you when it mattered most." Patricia stared at her daughter with something approaching hatred. "Well, congratulations, Maya. You've won. We're destroyed. Our reputation, our business, our social life. It's all gone. I hope your revenge was worth it." She turned to leave, then paused at the door. "But if you think this is over, you're wrong. We'll fight for those children with everything we have left. And when we win, when Emma and Ethan are living with us in a stable, loving home, you'll realize what you've really lost." The door slammed behind her, leaving Maya alone with the custody papers and the crushing realization that her parents' capacity for cruelty was far deeper than she'd ever imagined. Maya looked at the legal documents spread across her kitchen table and felt something shift inside her, something hard and unbreakable crystallizing in her chest. Her parents wanted a war. They wanted to threaten her children, the innocent victims in all of them. She picked up her phone and dialed her own attorney. "I need to file a countersuit," Maya said when the lawyer answered, "and I need to do it today." If her parents thought she was unstable before, they were about to discover what she looked like when she had nothing left to lose. 6 months later, Maya stood in her kitchen, watching Emma and Ethan play in the backyard with the neighbor children, their laughter drifting through the open window like music. The custody battle had lasted 3 brutal months, but Maya's evidence had been overwhelming. The recorded conversation, the documented timeline of events, and testimonies from friends who had witnessed her parents' conditional support over the years had painted a clear picture for the judge. The Whitmores had lost more than the custody case. They'd lost everything that mattered to them. Robert's real estate business had collapsed entirely after his remaining clients fled the scandal. Patricia had been quietly asked to resign from every charity board and social committee she'd ever joined. They'd sold the family estate and moved to a modest condo across town, their former country club friends crossing the street to avoid them. Maya had built something different in the ruins of her old life. Her neighbor Jessica had become like a sister, watching the twins when Maya needed to work late. The single mothers from the daycare had formed an informal support network, trading childcare and emotional backup. Chen's wife, a pediatrician, had offered to treat Emma and Ethan pro bono. After hearing their story, a community had emerged from the ashes of her parents' abandonment, imperfect but genuine, based on mutual support rather than social obligation. The encounter came on a random Tuesday at the grocery store. Maya rounded the corner into the produce section and froze. There, examining wilted lettuce with the careful attention of someone counting every penny, stood her parents. They looked shattered. Robert's once proud posture had collapsed into a defeated slouch, his expensive suits replaced by ill-fitting off-the-rack clothes. Patricia appeared to have aged a decade, her former polish replaced by the hollow-eyed exhaustion of someone who'd lost everything that defined her. For a moment their eyes met across the vegetables. Maya saw recognition, pain, and something that might have been regret flash across her mother's face, but neither of them moved. They were strangers now, connected only by shared DNA and mutual destruction. Maya turned her cart and walked away, feeling oddly empty. The revenge had accomplished everything she'd planned. Her parents understood consequences now, understood what it meant to lose everything when the people you counted on decided you weren't worth the effort. But it hadn't restored what was truly lost, the illusion of unconditional love, the fantasy of family that would show up when it mattered. That night, as Maya tucked Emma and Ethan into their beds, listening to their sleepy chatter about playground adventures and new friends, she realized something important. She had chosen painful truth over comfortable lie, and in losing the family she'd thought she had, she'd found the family she actually needed, one built on choice rather than obligation, on genuine care rather than social performance. "Mommy," Emma whispered as Maya kissed her forehead, "are you happy now?" Maya considered the question, thinking of everything that had been lost and everything that had been gained. "Yes, baby," she said finally. "Mommy is finally happy." Outside, the world continued its complex dance of love and betrayal, family and abandon. But inside this small house, with these two sleeping children and the chosen family that surrounded them, Maya had found something her parents' money and status could never buy, the simple revolutionary peace of being exactly where she belonged.